That's somewhat acceptable, I guess.
There we go.
There we go.
Hello, doctor.
Hello, Brendan. Hello, everyone.
How you doing, my friend?
I'm good. How are you? I'm sick.
I'm good. I've got my list. I've got my list of everything I'm sick of. I think.
You got a list though?
No, I'm just mucking around. But I could.
I mean, that would be epic if you had a list.
Yeah.
Most people don't, say they just don't. They're sick, but they don't know what up.
Well, I know, and I get that, and it's a question that's really, easy to hear when you're not sick, but then when you are sick and someone asks you that question and they're like, "What are you sick of?" And you're like, "You asking me that question."
Asking me stupid questions. Yes.
Yeah, but it's such a good question. I remember Gary was telling this story. I can't remember what it was in, but he was telling this story about his son who was calling him up complaining about how he was sick and and I just can't get over it. And so Gary said, "Okay, so what are you sick of?" And he wasn't processing him or anything. He was just asking him that question. "What are you sick of, son?" "Oh, I'm sick of this." "And what else are you sick of?" "Oh, I'm sick of this, and I'm sick of these people, and I'm sick of this going on." And he said it was interesting because after he didn't pock and pod or anything, after 10 minutes of asking him that question, he wasn't sick anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's funny how. Did I disconnect? Did you disconnect?
Hopefully not. Dear internet, dear Brazilian internet.
Okay.
Please work.
I feel like your Brazilian internet plus my rural Texas ranchland internet is a winning combination.
But we're making things happen,
Yeah. Well, you start talking when you're sick. Speaking of what I'm sick of, internet.
I'm sick of my internet. God damn it.
It never works when I wanted to. But I like that story. That's always a good one. There's been so many times. This is one of my go-to questions. Well, it was for a really long time because I used to always get sick. And then I came to Access and heard this. Yeah. It would be 4 or 5 times a year at least. I'd have like a seasonal flu or a seasonal sinus congestion. And then I had like chronic sinus congestion when I was a kid. So I ran this process a lot.
Wow. And but that even getting present with it, because I notice myself when I say it and it'll be I'm sick or I'm tired of this or both. If I'm doing some good drama, I'm sick and tired. But it's interesting also how much we've heard if you've been in Access or kind of read any kind of different things or heard any different things, you kind of get the concept of your point of view creates your reality. You can kind of get that and you'd be like, "Oh, I kind of get how that would work, that I'm creating it based on the points of view that I have." But we don't get to the degree that the power that we actually have to create our lives with that.
Mm-mm.
And I find that interesting. I just find that so interesting that with this as an example or an acknowledgement, getting to what your point of view is about anything is such a it's such a dynamic help in actually getting to what's going to allow you to change it.
Well, it's always interesting because I know when I ask this, like what I'm sick of, and I go, "Oh yeah, I am sick of that." But then I start feeling better. Like once I at least acknowledge it, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, maybe I'm not going to do this anymore." Or I'm like, with the Access tools, I'm like, "Oh, interesting point of view that I'm sick of it. Is this really that much fun? No, but do I have to be sick while doing it? Oh no, I don't."
I know, I don't. I could actually have all of life come to me with ease and joy and glory.
Whoa, using 2 tools together. Uh-oh.
2 tools, double combo, wham. Hey, I do want to mention also that we have Spanish translation available. So someone can probably put that link in if you don't have it already. You can listen to us in Espanol. Oh my goodness.
You know what I'm sick of? I'm sick of my hair. It just doesn't want to.
It doesn't want to do it. We could just. The live will now be us telling you what we're sick of, and we
They're like, wait, I thought we were going to
I'm
get
like-
something beneficial. You know, you asked
You're
for, like, we named it, what are you sick of? Like, but it's actually what we're sick of.
Yeah, we should have changed it to that. What we're sick of. Come and listen to what we're sick of. There you go.
Wait, I feel like that's like reality TV. People love that.
Totally. Hey, if you don't expose these things to yourselves, people, you're not going to get rid of them. There you go. Well, that's the other thing that we do too, is like a lot of the stuff that we keep hidden from ourselves is a lot of those points of view that we have that we shouldn't have, based on the points of view that it's wrong to have those points of view. They're the things that stick us the most. And it's been, I've heard forever that you can't change anything that you keep hidden from you. And so with this we live in an interesting world right now.
I'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to go in.
I was contemplating how far I could go into that. And then I was like, let's just say we live in an interesting world right now. But what if it was okay to be sick of it?
Yeah. And I really, for me, when we talk about what are you sick of, it's like when you're sick of something, you kind of make it greater than you. And you put it in this place where you can't actually do anything with it. Not all the time, but a majority of the time, at least what I see. And it's, we just put it into this, I'm sick of it, because, well, you have no ability to change it or no ability to deal with it or anything. And when I started running this process, I was like, okay, I'm sick of this. Oh, okay. Well, POC and POD, all that. But one, the clearing statement's great because you start to actually see you can change things. And when I started seeing, I can change these things, I don't have to live with these things that I'm sick of. I could either, change my point of view, change, obviously changing your point of view, huge, but change like how I look at things or how I just interact with them, or I just like, okay, I'm not going to go to this place anymore.
Well, I love that you put it like that too, because it's not about just asking the question to discover what you're sick of. You can actually discover what you're sick of so that you can change it. That's, that part. And that's why I love Access. It's so different with, bring up the energy. But like, if you, like, I know for myself, if I'm asking this question, especially when I'm kind of in the thick of it, like when I am sick, asking that question, what I discover most of the time is most of the things are not my point of view.
Yeah.
So Victor put a comment in here. I'm sick of being so insecure. First of all, awesome awareness. And then I wonder how much of that doesn't belong to you. So a couple of questions with that. Like, if you get something like that, because one of the things you want to avoid doing is getting to an awareness and then justifying why you have the awareness or why you think you have the problem. Because 99% of the time, it's not what you think it is creating it. So with something like that, first of all, who does it belong to? But then if it's, I grew up with a lot of people who were extremely insecure. I grew up with a lot of people who had a lot of stuff with anger, a lot of stuff with making themselves less than and doing this less than point of view in order to get somebody else to create their lives. There were specific energies that I grew up around that, who does it belong to? I would ask it, but then wouldn't really be willing to change any of it because it created such a fundamental part of who I thought I was. So in looking at that, so many different ways to go with it. But one of the things that I realized about myself with a lot of the things that I said I desired to change, I wasn't willing to change them. And then until I knew what I could choose beyond it, that I could create as more, more ways in which I could define myself. And I don't even know if any of that made sense. So there you go.
Mhm. I'm like, where did we go, Brendan?
Well,
I
it's
was like, I
Yeah.
was with you. I was with you, and then I was like, I don't know where we went now.
well, it's a
Oh, I'm sick of not having the money I want. I like that too.
I like that too. So here's what you want to do with that too. Pock and pod.
Pretty
Pock
much.
and pod, pock and pod, pock and pod. Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all 100 shorts, boys, povads, creations, bases, and beyonds. Because I don't know if I have talked to anyone in the last few months who hasn't had stuff going on with money. And if you look at, again, the way what's going on in the world right now, as soon as you align and agree or resist and react to any of that, you're stuck in it. You become a part of what you cannot change. So I was doing a session with somebody. I'm like sweating bullets right now. I love that. I was like, I'm in Brazil. It's not air conditioned here. It's hotter than hell. And I was like, I'm going to put on a nice shirt. I'm going to put on a long sleeve shirt. But anyway, there you go. But I was doing a session with this girl before, and she was basically complaining about her money situation. And she was like, and I've done the How to Become Money workbook, and I've done all the tools, and I've done all the tools, and I'm doing this, and I've done this, and I'm doing this, and it hasn't changed. And I went, yet. It hasn't changed yet. And I see for a lot of us, you'll use the tools, but if it doesn't change based on the timeline that you've decided it should change by, it's not working. As soon as you go to it's not working, it's not working.
Well, another thing I always like with people, that because I have done sessions where people are like, I'm doing all this stuff and it's not changing. I'm like, well, have you ever really gotten this upset about it though? And they're like, oh, no. And I'm like, well, then it's changing. Because it's like sometimes people have these things and they're just like, oh, it's okay. I can just make do. I can just deal with it. It's like they're not willing to get to the point where they're like ready to explode and get to the point of like, oh, this isn't changing and I keep getting more and more, they would say pissed off. I look at it as they're finally willing to be like, you know what? No, enough. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, and what a cool acknowledgement, actually. It's such a good point, because if you look at, we have so many points of view about what change needs to look like until you acknowledge that it's actually changed. And I was actually looking at that for myself this morning. I was like, I guess I kind of had some, I don't know, this thing in my world where I was like not changing fast enough. And then I stopped and looked at my life. And I was like, oh, I don't even acknowledge where I do change. I'm just going to put that out there and just pause on that, because I know I'm not alone. What would it be like if you could actually acknowledge where you have changed? Acknowledge what does show up. Acknowledge each day, well, wait a minute. What did I choose today that I wasn't willing to choose yesterday? Like not judging yourself in a moment where you would usually go to judgment as an impulse or a reaction. That's choosing more for you. That's becoming more of who you are. What if you could acknowledge that? So Victor, yeah, arts, who does it belong to? But one of the question that keeps popping into my head since you asked it, and I know we're not doing a private session right now, but I have to put it out there. Is there someone or something that you are trying to control with that? And then if that brings something up, you just kind of see, because the way that facilitating yourself is an interesting thing. Because for me, it wasn't until a few years ago when I really started going down a different path for myself that I really started, I guess, desiring and demanding honesty with myself. So it's like in something like that, if you take it, you're looking at something of, oh, I keep, this insecurity keeps showing up, is first of all, I would start with, what is this? So we have 4 questions in Access that are gold with everything. What is this? What do I do with it? Can I change it? If so, how do I change it? And then when you ask, what is this? You don't look for an answer. You kind of just allow yourself to see what pops with that. And you might get, oh, well, I kind of have this, so I draw these people into my life, or I kind of have this. I know, this is an energy that I know it makes me comfortable. Even though I say it's uncomfortable, it's something that I know. And you just start following those threads. And one of the things that I would say is valuable to begin to allow yourself to have as an awareness, facilitating yourself, is acknowledge when you're bullshitting yourself. Acknowledge when you're going, that's not it. What is this that I'm not willing to acknowledge? Okay, I like it. We got it's question time today. Dr. Andrew Gardella. Oh, okay. We're on to relationships. I'm going to leave that one to you.
Oh, great. How to change a relationship if you are sick of receiving breadcrumbs and the person does not know any different? So one thing, please know, we'll do the best we can to give you some tools, but relationships or any of these things, are a little bit more than, alive and one question can handle. For relationships, a really great place to start is the Divorceless Relationship book by, that's by Gary Douglas. Is it Dane too, or is it just Gary?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Gary actually gave me that book Gary told me that book several years ago. He said, this needs to be your Bible. And I made it my Bible, and there's so many, like you said, great place to start. There's so many tools in that book.
And because part of it, for me, is when we're talking about what you're sick of, is to acknowledge that, okay, this is something that isn't working for me, or I'm making myself sick with this. Just because you realize something's not working to you, like Brendan was saying earlier, it doesn't mean you like all of a sudden that's true and that's real and that's the conclusion that you can now beat someone over the head with, or beat yourself over the head with. I think for me, it's like when I come to the places where I'm like, oh, I'm sick of this. It's more of a question of, one, I ask, okay, what am I sick of? And I use the clearing statement. But then I'm also like, okay, so what else is possible here? What would it take for this to change? Or, the 4 questions Brendan was talking about. What is this? What can I do with it? Can I change it? And if so, how can I change it? Because so often we want to decide, we know what's going on, but if we actually knew what was going on with us, it would probably change. Most of the time, it's these things that we're hiding from ourselves or not acknowledging, or we decide it's the way the person's breathing. I guarantee you, it's never how they're breathing. That might be the trigger, but there's all this other energetic stuff underneath it, which is, really like, which the tools and the clearing statement and just bars or body processes handle, that we don't really even know, because you get it and it starts to change.
Yep. And one of the things I realized a few days ago, I was looking at some different things in my life, and I was like, wow, somewhere I stopped like really asking for things. So if you look at like it takes some, it's easy to complain. It's really easy to complain and judge and just tell everyone what you're sick of and wonder why your life sucks and do all of that. It's hard to actually take a look at what you would like to be different. And if you were being honest with yourself, what you truly desire to create as your life, like to actually get present with that. And so even with in something like relationships, which can be a massive source for contribution in your life, a lot of people don't create them that way. it's my life doesn't work because the relationship's not working. But what if it could be, okay, what do you truly desire that relationship to be that you're not acknowledging? Is that over? Is it you desire them to do everything you want? Is it you would actually like to create something where both of your lives get greater? Is it you would like to have more sex, more joy, more, what is that? And then get a sense of that and start asking for it. Now, what could I be or do today that would create this right away?
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of us, people just kind of, well, you could put it down to some different things, but people kind of stopped asking what it is they truly desire to have as their lives.
Yeah, and I think that's great. A lot of times, we're like complaining like, "Oh, my partner just doesn't get me or they don't see this." And it's like, well, you could just ask a question too. Like, one, you always accuse people of you people always accuse you of what they themselves are doing. But it's like if you're accusing people, then there's also where you're not doing it. So if you're like seeking for acknowledgement from someone, most of the time, like people can only acknowledge you for what you're acknowledging yourself for. So if you're like, "Oh, I'm amazing," and they just don't see it, well, are you really getting present with you and acknowledging like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing," or "I did this so well," or whatever? Or are you just kind of glossing it over and then get pissed when other people gloss over it, like expecting them to do it when you're not going to do it?
Do we need to tell them about men's English and women's English also?
Well, I mean, that's really, I like men's
just
English.
putting that out there as a
I mean,
as a sidebar.
that's like a whole nother live and then some,
That is definitely a whole other live and then some. But I like the energetics of that. People only accuse others of what they themselves are doing. But when you look at that from your side, one of my favorite processes lately, it is when anything comes up, it's not just the person that you're in your closest relationships with, it's the way you relate with the world around you, the way that you're in relationship with everything around you. And so how many of you like to kind of get triggered and then separate and then go into judgment and then go into anger and then do control, all those fun things? Well,
you mean all the things they're really sick of that they really
Yeah.
don't want to acknowledge?
All of those. Oh, damn it. What I've found really helpful, and this takes a little bit of practice and some vulnerability with yourself also, is notice when those energies come up. Notice when you go to separate, or notice when those triggers go off and you want to control and you want to do anger and fight and ask, okay, so everywhere I have been there and done this, or everywhere I'm currently being and doing it, but not acknowledging, destroy and uncreate it. Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and poc, all 100 shorts, boys, povads, creations, bases, and beyonds. And when that comes up, notice if there's anywhere in your world you go to, it's not me, it's them. If you get that, it's definitely you. I mean, you're probably going to hate that. But
let's put it this way too, especially in relationships, it's both of you. It's never just, because to get triggered, you have to have something, some point of view, some wall, some barrier, some separation or something to bounce up against or to push off of.
How did we get onto relationships?
Because, it's all the things people are sick of.
True story. Hey, if we're going to put down, like if we were going to like guess some of the, like let's say top 3 of the what are people sick of, you're going to be putting relationship in there.
Money, husband/wife, and family. Done.
Money's definitely going at the top, isn't it?
Well, maybe
everything
for you.
That is pock and pod.
Yeah. She also said, I like to have more equal give and take. I feel like I'm the one initiating everything. Yeah, but how cool is that? Yeah. I mean, the cool thing about initiating everything, does that give you more control or less control? And do you like to have more control or do you like to have less control?
There's also, again, there is so much, there's so many tools and different just awarenesses and processes out there with all the stuff in Access. Like Simone and I were in a relationship many years ago, and we wrote a book together. And one of the stories that she tells in that book is about manipulation, right? And she came home with all of this shopping one day, and she was so excited about it. Oh my God, I bought all of these things. And I'm pretty sure it was Tupperware. It was kitchen things. And so I paid no attention.
You're very excited about that.
Well, I definitely didn't do the right thing, and I paid no attention. And she was pissed. She was upset with me. And so she had a conversation with Gary Douglas, and he said, look, what you need to do is you need to go and make it all about him. And she said, I don't want to make it all about him. And he said, you need to go and make it all about him. This is manipulation. She asked him why. And he said, look, he's never had anyone make it all about him. So she did. She came home and she made it all about me. And within 3 minutes, I was making everything about her.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, there's such a value in that, because relationships, most people do them from who has the most power, who wins based on control, not how do we create something greater by manipulating each other. So I think that's a cool tool,
Mm-hmm.
But there you go. Okay. Anything else we want to talk about? You could come to our body class. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah. Speaking of how to get out of sickness, body processes. Oh, and I got to say, this new one. So there's 2 new body processes added to the 3-day body class, and one of them I have made my best friend of late, and it's been so helpful. So, I'm grateful. So if you want to find out what it is, like, you can come to the ranch and watch us look at you like this. We've never facilitated a class together, so we have no idea how that will be. So we'll figure out how. I think we can.
Yeah, you could come and be witness to this worldwide premiere event at the Lazy Double D Ranch in Puebloville. So there you go.
Which is in Texas.
Which is, well, you know what? It's okay right now if you're sick of us.
That's funny.
That is funny.
But if you don't know what the body processes are, if you're like not sure what the hell we're talking about with that, they're these wonderful tools that you use to put your hands on a body and ask an energy to run, and they shift to they start to shift and change the energetics of your body and of you, and they start to unlock where you've locked in decisions and judgments and just all of these things into your body that keep you from kind of being a different energy, having a different energy. And yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah. What I've noticed lately too with facilitating these classes is such a different space where, I don't know, years ago when I'd facilitate 3-day body classes, there would be a lot of, that initial resistance.
Mm-hmm.
I found that not to be so much there lately, and people just going, receiving, bodies actually having the allowance to receive. And it's just a beautiful thing.
Someone says, can you guys talk about, Andrew says, there, thank you for putting it up there. That's easier to read still. Brendan, can you guys talk about love versus gratitude and thoughts, feelings, and emotions in relationships?
No.
So again, with relationships, I highly recommend reading Divorceless Relationship. There's also a book called Projections, Expectations, Separations, Rejections, and Judgments, which is also a great book to read for relationships. There's the one you wrote with Simone, Brendan, which is, what is Relationships Done Different?
No, relationships. Are you sure you want one?
Oh, that's that one. But
That's that one.
that's right.
And there's
so many-
relationships done different, and there's so much stuff out there. It's just endless. So
and it's not to put you guys off. I'll talk about a little bit about it, I'm sure, but please realize this is a huge thing, and to try and handle it in a second or in 15 minutes or whatever is not going to not going to work in the long term. Why? Well, these are things you're constantly up against, and you kind of need to educate yourself and way more than you ever thought about. I got married, well, now over a year ago, and I'm like, this last year, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many things I just need to learn how to do better or different or whatever.
or different, or yeah. And it's like,
'Cause-
and it's two people coming. Well, again, we could go down off 8,000 tangents.
So, but he was saying, I think the easiest thing is love versus gratitude. One of the things, we talk about is love has all these different definitions. Your mother says, I love you. And then, there's certain things you do that she does not love you anymore, or your wife or a girlfriend or, boyfriend or whatever. A lot of people have, I love you, but there's a but there. When you do the things that they don't love about you, they no longer love you, or they forget they love you. With gratitude, there's no other side to it. Gratitude doesn't have any judgment in it. And
Yeah.
so if you can, in relationships, if you can look at what you're grateful for the person, that usually starts to open up a different space and tends to melt all of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions in the relationship.
There you go.
Boom. Quick.
How does it get any better than that? Boom, quickie. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, my friend. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for this wonderful conversation down the lane of what are you sick of?
Yes. So 2 things. If you guys want to see us again, we're doing another live. Do we have that? We haven't announced it yet, but we can announce it now, I guess, right?
We haven't announced it yet, but we're doing another one very soon. You're going to get us together again.
Yes.
And I can't
sometime
remember what
later
that
in
one's
March.
called.
Yeah. What is that one called? Oh, I remember. Oh God, I don't want to now after talking about relationships, I'm really not sure.
Do we have to change it?
I don't know. I can't remember the title, but
So I want to mention also that I started doing weekly lives. They're every Thursday, 2 p.m. Houston time. Tomorrow is, and we're actually getting them translated into Spanish, Portuguese, Estonian. That will be growing. Tomorrow's topic is, where does your happy live?
yeah, cool. So
There you go.
there's that, and our body class that we're talking about is coming up in a month. Is it April 4th or 5th? Does it start?
April 4th at the ranch, baby. Oh my goodness.
So if you want more
How does it
information,
get even better?
I'm sure there will be some links or something below when you guys see the post of this, because the social media people know what they're doing.
Thank you, beautiful people, for being here. What else is possible?
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Brendan.
Thank you, Dr. Andrew.
Later, everyone.
Ciao, amigos.